Thanks for tuning in to the Juggle is Real. I'm Andryanna, and I loved having this conversation, and I'm so excited to share it with you. I think as we move through this year, a lot of the themes that we are chatting about in today's conversation are really going to be amplified, are really going to make headlines and make waves. And that's why I feel it's so great to have these conversations with real people, with people who are doing incredible things and just taking a stand for good things and for what they truly believe in. My guest today is Amalia Martino, and she is the founder and president of the Vida Agency in Seattle, USA. Amalia continues to disrupt the agency model by building an innovative company culture committed to equity and work-life balance. And in every project, she stretches her clients' minds while meeting their goals with excellence through multicultural perspectives. She has over 20 years of experience in communications and public relations, and it has been coupled with her bold vision to yield powerful strategies that are inclusive for all audiences. Her work has positioned the Vida Agency as the go-to agency for multicultural communications in the Northwest USA, which has impacted the lives of hundreds of thousands of people through trust in major market segments. Amalia is a sought-after thought leader who has served on many boards, both for the Latino Community Fund of Washington State and the Process Improvement Committee of the Washington State Office of Minority and Women Business Enterprises. She's also on the advisory committee for One City Center and was the chapter president of the Fem City Seattle. Amalia received her Bachelor of Arts in International Relations from the University of Washington. And as you'll hear today, she is making such an impact through her leadership, through the things she's doing in her community, and the ways that she is putting equity in action. Today, we're going to get to know her a little bit more. We're going to be talking about equity, social justice, and representation, talking about how she pivoted throughout her career and really built success, topics of money, leadership, and breaking those barriers. And we're going to hear from her about her parenting as a single mom and that legacy that she hopes to inspire not only her family with, but also those that she is impacting through the work she does. This is an incredible conversation, so let's just dive right in. Hey, I'm Andryanna Gonco, and this is the Juggle is Real podcast. As I share my ongoing journey from experiencing burnout to leading a more mindful and intentional life with better balance, I hope you feel seen, that you realize your worth, lighten your load, and prioritize your own needs. As we hear from leading experts and well-known faces in the wellness, entrepreneurship, education, and motherhood space, I hope you gain insights, proven practices, and learn actionable tools to help you enjoy the juggle of work, family, and everything in between with a little less stress and a lot more ease, joy, and fun. Most of all, I hope you find what you need to simplify, streamline, and supercharge your own journey of better balance and self-love. Are you with me? Let's get started. This episode of The Juggle is Real is supported by St. Francis Herb Farm. You know that midwinter slump? The one where your energy is gone, your to-do list is never ending, it's freezing outside, and the sun is a distant memory? Yep, same. That's why I've been leaning into small but mighty shifts to help me get through this season, like stepping outside for fresh air, even if it's just for a few minutes for school pickup, adding a little movement between tasks, and supporting my body with the right nutrients. Lately, I have been loving St. Francis Herb Farm. It's a Canadian family-owned company with over 35 years of experience making high-quality, plant-based supplements. And I wanted to share some things that have been really helping me. The St. Francis Herb Farm Vitamin D3 for All is a winter essential, helping keep my immune system strong when sunlight is scarce. It's in liquid form, which not only is convenient, but also makes it much easier for my body to absorb. It's something that I give to the whole family. Their ashwagandha is my go-to for staying grounded. It's a single herb known for promoting calm and focus. And when the stress is really stacking up, Stressed has my back. It's a powerhouse blend of 6 adaptogenic herbs, including holy basil, and ashwagandha designed to reduce fatigue, boost energy, and help the body better handle stress. So if winter's feeling heavy, I feel you. Take a deep breath, give yourself some grace, and take a look at stfrancisherbfarm.com because small, supportive shifts really add up. That's stfrancisherbfarm.com. STFRANCIS herbfarm.com. Now let's get back to the episode. Amalia, welcome to the Juggle Israel. Thanks so much for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Yeah, thanks for having me. This is exciting.
It's so fun because a little while back, I had the absolute honor and pleasure to chat with you on your podcast, The Whole Damn Pie. And now we get to hear, the tables have turned and now we get your perspective. And I just love that concept of the whole damn pie. So we're going to chat today about how you're making an impact and a whole bunch of great topics that I think are so important. But before we dive into all the juicy stuff, I would love to get to know you better. I know that you were a competitive ice skater as a
Oh
child.
my gosh.
Now you're the founder of this amazing multicultural marketing agency. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey so far?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, you brought back childhood. I mean, I'm a Seattle kid. I grew up here in Seattle, like right in the heart of the city and on Capitol Hill. And, I was the total urban kid. Public transportation, took the bus everywhere, a lot of freedom. I'm aging myself, total latchkey kid, right? Where you just kind of ran wild. No cell phones. So if you had a quarter, think it was a dime and then a quarter for the payphone. You were lucky, right? Um, I don't know about me. I think I've always kind of just been hard headed and passionate about specific things in life and equality and equal opportunity. And from a really young age, I just thought that there was right and there was a wrong way to do things. And um, so yeah, I'm from Seattle. I grew up here. I went to University of Washington, and like you said, I was a competitive figure skater, which must be on the website. Is that where you got that?
We tried to do a little bit of research, but I
Oh,
think, yeah, that's probably where it came from. But I
that's
mean, I
so
think this
funny.
is so great because it does paint this beautiful picture because we see you today in this role as the founder, the
Mm.
president of the Vida Agency, and you're doing so much good. But what inspired you? I mean, you said you from a young age you had these values, but
Mhm.
what about it inspired you to create this agency that you founded? And then how does that reflect your vision for equity and equality and community impact?
Yeah. So I think, I grew up mostly the only person of color in my family. I'm biracial, and I grew up not having a relationship with my dad. I've never met him actually. And so I was raised by my mom's family, and they are blue collar, white family, pretty conservative. And so I always felt like I was kind of the other in the room. My grandpa was, we would have lots of, I call them debates now, but I think especially when I was in college, they were a little more heated than that. But um, we would, he was very civically minded, I guess. He was, he had lots of strong opinions, and a lot of times I wouldn't necessarily agree with them, but he taught me, I guess, through his own actions of ways that he could be civically engaged. He would always be writing a letter to the editor of the Seattle Times, or he was always doing something to get his opinion out there. But I think it really sparked in me that I was different than everybody and I had a different point of view. And I think I had access to conversations that a lot of people of color don't have this access to. And sometimes that access was really painful because I could hear how they would talk about other people, but I would identify as those other people. So I felt like it was always my duty to stand up or say something or be the contrarian or give a different opinion or a different point of view. And I think I've been like that, you know, since I can remember. So that kind of led into I didn't have a magical thought when I was younger of like, I want to start this agency. But I think um, I was always interested in communications, not so much in like advertising. I even remember taking a class in college that was like advertising. And it was like advertising 101. It's like you find someone's pain points and then you like design a thing to exploit it and to like change their behavior. And I was like, that is disgusting. I don't want to do that. But I found my way somehow to communications, what sounded more strategic and thoughtful to me. And as I grew older, I thought, I actually worked in house at a healthcare company at Kaiser Permanente in their government relations and their health policy. It was kind of my first job out of college. And I got promoted there and I was doing communications. And that was kind of like my exposure to policy work. Like that's where I don't know, the soup was made, right? You had all these policy wonks and this big behemoth of an insurance company talking about these policy things. I thought from a very place that wasn't very realistic to most of the people that I knew or to even myself at that time of like how much money I was making. Um, and so I found myself again, like the voice at the table saying, I don't think health policy, or I don't think health savings account is going to be like the winner. This was before the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare, so it was a different health system in the U.S. at the time. But I thought, this is not going to move the needle. A lot of us don't have money to stock away $5,000 a year in a health savings account. Like,
Hmm.
you're not really thinking about other people than people in your socioeconomic status. So again, I found myself that voice in the room. And then I kind of, after a while of working there, I left there and, had some deviating paths, I would say, and then really landed again of like wanting to set up structures or systems or campaigns that were representative and wanted to be able to position people and to also have a voice in the room. So that's what really inspired me to start the Vida Agency.
This is beautiful. Thank you for what you're doing and for actually standing up and for doing so much work to amplify voices uh, for people who are in underserved communities. Um, I would love to know because you're talking a little bit about your career and how it's changed and evolved. And I'd love to get into that. But before we do, can you share a little bit more about your current role and how you see yourself creating meaningful change? I know you're standing up for things that you believe
Yeah.
in for people who aren't at the table, so to speak. As a woman, as a minority-owned business leader, how are you overcoming the challenges that you face, and how are you supporting other underrepresented groups to create meaningful change?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, I think I'm trying to infect change and create change through an economic vehicle, which is a business, a company. And I think that's pretty intentional. I don't run a nonprofit, I run a business. And that's a choice in the US, our tax system is built to favor businesses and to favor business owners. And so I thought, how do I um, create a company that, most people, when they think about building a company, it's to create personal wealth or to create generational wealth or to, um, do something better than anybody's ever done it before. And I do want all of those things, but I also want my company to be an economic vehicle that reinvests into community by doing the work differently. So the way that appears on a daily basis is we want to make sure that we are sourcing from vendors that represent the communities that we are um, engaging. So, for example, if we're having a community meeting in one neighborhood, we want to make sure that we, rent a local facility, not a corporate facility, that we make, use, order all the catering from like a local small business, that we are really intentional with how we spend the money, and that we also are paying community members, especially if they're from underrepresented communities, for their time, and their expertise as members of those communities is a valuable thing. So we make sure that we compensate them for their time for engaging with us, whether that's through a focus group or taking a survey or helping us co-create a campaign that we want to make sure accurately and respectfully represents a certain community. We make sure that they're part of the project team with us.
So good. I love how you said, I mean, you're in business for many reasons. You want to do good, you want to be good, but also, money does talk. And so by being
Mm-hmm.
successful, you're showing others that it is possible for them because it is possible for you. Not only are you successful yourself, but you're also making an impact in ways that, does represent the economy. The more you
Yeah.
have, the more you can give, and the bigger the voice you have, the bigger the impact. So I think it's incredible to see um, the wonderful work that you're doing, but also not being afraid to say, yes, I want to build wealth for myself. Yes, I want to build generational wealth for my family. And yes, I want to support the communities and those who do not have as loud of a voice. So I think this is so beautiful. I know that
Thank you.
you're welcome. Yeah. You also, amongst all of the hats you're wearing and all the roles, like I mentioned earlier, you're the host of this amazing podcast. It's called The Whole Damn Pie. And I think it does kind of represent everything that you've been talking about, like all of these different pieces of the puzzle coming together. But I would love to know from your perspective, because it's something that you ask your guests on your podcast. What does the whole damn pie mean to you? And how, by having this podcast, by doing the work that you're doing, how can you show others to strive for this version of fulfillment for themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the whole damn pie changes for me from day to day, but I think generally it means being able to make decisions for my life that are mine to make, being able to have this balance, which is seems to always be elusive, of like work and home and security, financial security and safety and joy. And sometimes, the pie changes a bit, but it's really having that mix of balance and the autonomy to be able to make the choices for my life that I want to make.
Yes, so
Hmm.
important
Yeah.
because because as we're talking about creating wealth and making money and being an entrepreneur, you've mentioned that how we view money really does shape our decisions. So, what
Hmm.
advice do you have for women, uh, for people of color, for people balancing financial goals and personal goals? How can we maybe shift our perspective, or how can we view money to help us with that piece within the whole damn pie?
So I did not grow up with money whatsoever. I grew up, accessing public support, food banks. Um, I grew up with a single mom. She had me when she was 17. We were very young. She was very young, and we were very poor. Even though she had this large blue collar family, we were pretty much on our own. So I grew up with a pretty severe scarcity mindset. So, I have a vivid memory of, I think I was maybe 5 or 6. And in retrospect, I think we lived in a condemned building. I don't think people were supposed to be living there, but I remember like stepping over a homeless person that was sleeping in like the entryway and then going upstairs and having to sleep. And that didn't feel safe. Then I started going to school, um, where I was bused to a different part of the city. So City of Seattle had integrated busing. So they would integrate the schools through forced busing. And I went to school on the other side of the town, which was very affluent. So then I grew up with a lot of affluent kids. So um, like Lakeside High School, I went there for a summer thing. And if anybody doesn't know Lakeside, it's where Bill Gates and Paul Allen went. And it's very, very, I think their parents maybe started it. I don't know. It was a private school. But so I grew up having proximity to and visibility into what wealth meant, um, and what access it gave you to things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And so for me, I just wanted to learn the system. I knew it was a system. The money, like anything else, is a system, and I had to do work on my emotional connection and judgment about myself for accessing the system that clearly wasn't built for me, right? Women,
Mhm.
we couldn't get access to credit until the 1980s, I think, which is wild. And I remember my grandma getting her first credit card and the things that, it was a moment. So I wanted to learn the system. I wanted to understand the tax structures. I mean, I am not a money or math person, but I wanted to get it. Like I wanted to figure out what this thing was and how I could control it or how I could even just get access to it. So, I don't know, I spent a lot of years just talking to people, asking people questions. I would um a lot of those kids that I went to school with, and I'd see them buying their first houses like so early, and I would ask them like, "How were you able to do that?" Well, I inherited X number of dollars from my grandparents, so that was my first down payment. And I realized like, okay, I can't work my way. I can't work my way in a job to that kind of wealth. So what's the next best thing is being an entrepreneur and starting a business. So it was really a lot of trial and error and both doing the work on myself emotionally because you're from what I've learned, how your relationship with money is formed very early in your life. And you have lots of judgments and lots of opinions about money from very early on. And I've had to actively work to break those opinions and judgments because I am becoming not the poor kid, right? I am becoming somebody who actually has some resources to give back to community. And, you know, it's not shame, I would say, tied to that. But, growing up, I did have a lot of judgments about rich people or those people because they were apart from me. So there's emotional thing that I need to do too as I'm growing in my success of being okay with that.
I think it's great that you're so open and honest about your relationship. I think we all have our own money stories, and it is one of those taboo topics that is difficult to discuss, and people aren't really sure, how to frame it or how to approach it. But like you said, the ways that we were raised and a lot of our childhood really does correlate to our relationship with money as adults and how we feel about money, whether we think money's the root of all evil or we
Yeah.
think money's here to support us and provide us with opportunity. A lot of that does stem back to, those earlier days. So I think it's great that you are actively still working on it and your mindset around money. And you've pursued entrepreneurship as a path out of a life that you didn't want to be leading anymore. So I would just like to know, because you are now a leader in this marketing world and in a place in your community, um, do you have any words of support or advice for those who might be struggling or in a place similar to how you were raised or how you are ensuring inclusivity and authenticity in the work that you're doing now to support others?
Yes, I would say it, there's this meme that I always see on social media where it's like what success looks like as a straight line and like what it actually is. And it's all these squiggly lines. And it's so
Yes.
true. Like, I mean, this has taken 20 years probably, right?
Mhm.
And I think just the amount of like doubt that I have had, right? Like, is this going to work? I don't know if it's going to work. And you just kind of keep going. It's kind of like you put blinders on and you keep going. And you hit a place where you're like, oh, not everybody would do this. And I think this is the magic that entrepreneurs have. The magic that entrepreneurs have is we are, I think, realistic but optimistic, and we have that like get up and go or that like perseverance that I think a lot of our peers don't have, right? Or, I also want to say that I think there's a place of privilege here. I'm, it's not like I had a lot of support from family who would watch my daughter when I could go do things. I realize that my experience isn't everyone's experience, but I think um, being able to just keep going in a place that you can still care for yourself, right? Not keep going like at sacrificing everything, but keep going to a place where you can care for yourself, keeping open because this skill that you build where you're constantly pivoting is something that I think is really magical. It's also something I think that you just get better at. The stakes get a little bit bigger, but the skill is still the core skill of being able to pivot and react. And then now I'm in this place where I have this privilege of being planful because I have historic data and I have people on my team that can help me financially plan and plan for our employees and plan for, investments that we'll make as a company. I couldn't have imagined that I would be here 5 years ago. I didn't even know that this was where I was going, but now I'm here. So now I get to keep learning from those that keep teaching me.
It's so good. I like how you're describing it from a place of, realizing, we are all in different places and different stages, and there is an element of privilege in a lot of, the things that we're discussing. But you're also mentioning that having support and being able to ask for help has played a role in your success and in being able to follow that dream and build your path to where you are today. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Hmm.
How have you received support, or what did that look like for you, and how is it still shaping your journey?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I've received so much support. I think my mom is the number one. She would help, or my grandma or my aunts would help watch my daughter. I was also a single mom, so would help watch, would help take her to soccer or other things when I wasn't able to. There were some times really early on in my company where payroll was due and cash flow was an issue, and I had to go ask to borrow some money for a week. And, I had family members that I could ask that of that were able to support me. You can't, as a new company, you can't get a business loan until demonstrate a certain amount of success. So I self-funded my company. So it was just, I didn't have investors. I didn't have capital really. So it was just slow growth, right? So I think it is a real fallacy that we think we achieve things on our own. I absolutely did not. I There have been little things where I can point back to and say, God, if it wasn't for that one person that made that one connection or that gave me that one chance when why would they even have given me that chance at this point? I don't know that I would get, I,
Mhm.
um, there's so many moments, big and small, where you can think, but you have to be open for it, right? You have to be okay knowing what you don't know, asking for the help, saying, I don't really understand how this works. Can you come help me do this? Um, and I think when I see social media today, and especially my daughter who's in her early 20s, it's so much like this overnight success and I did this and I'm an influencer and I got this and I'm like, it is such a fallacy. Nobody gets anywhere where they're going alone. It doesn't mean that your skills and your talent and your get up and go ness wasn't part of the journey. Absolutely. Like it wouldn't have happened without that perseverance, but the support from family, friends, clients, who gave us a chance really early on and then keep coming back and asking for more. Like that is 100% the support that's helped fuel my success at the Vida Agency.
I love it. I think, in my experience too, if it weren't for being able to overcome the fear of asking for help, and then also
Mm-hmm.
being able to say yes when people are offering support, I think it's just something that, a lot of moms, we have to overcome and understand
Mm-hmm.
that many people who are thriving, it's certainly because of the support of others, and no one is doing
Mm-hmm.
it alone, and thriving. So thank you for sharing that. Now, you've mentioned that you are a mom. You mentioned that you're a single
Mhm.
mom, and now your daughter is in her 20s, which is, I'm sure, so beautiful for you to see her
Yeah.
growing up and entering adulthood. What lessons do you hope to pass on to her about, the things that you're doing or about these really serious topics, things like equity, things like identity and self-worth and resiliency and moving into adulthood? What are you hoping that you've instilled in her or that you're still trying to instill today?
Yeah. I mean, she's doing a really great job. I think she is resilient is a word I would use to describe her. So that gives me a real source of pride. I think I was very um, intentional when she was growing up that I wasn't raising a child, I was raising a future adult. So
Mm,
teaching her independence was a really, really important thing to me. Um, as a mom, you always look back and think you could have maybe done things a little bit differently or better. Or, I maybe wish I would have babied her a little bit more. But I think she is um, successful in life now. She has core skills that can take her to the next part of life, and she doesn't have to be dependent on anybody. She knows how to manage her money. She knows how to she lives on her own. She knows how to manage her work schedule and her school schedule, and she's juggling a lot. So for her, the juggle is real, right? So I
mm,
think um, we've always talked a lot in our house about equity, about policies in the world and how they would impact some people. When she got when she could first vote after she was 18, we would, we'd read the voting pamphlet, we'd fill out our ballots together. We did that again this last election in November. So um, it's always just kind of been a part of our house where we have these conversations. And I think it's been really helpful because now she'll see something online and, it could be a TikTok video of some random person saying something just so, and, sometimes she'll come and say, "Did you hear this?" And I'll say, "I don't, let's look into that because I think there's more to that story," right? Like, just now it's about like beefing up the skills of being able to live in a world where stuff is always coming at you and media is always coming at you. And how do you take your core values, but also like be able to navigate this world that can be a little triggering constantly, and she graduated high school in 2020 when everything was shut down for COVID. So she's had a lot of um, opportunity to be resilient already.
yes. I
Hmm.
mean, we want to shelter our children. We want no harm to come to them, but it is through the learnings that we have to go through that I think that resiliency and also the wisdom comes from that. Something that you said really, really just spoke to me, and that was that you said I wasn't raising a child, I was raising a future adult.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's just beautiful in so many ways. I mean, not that we want to think of our babies as adults already, but how did that affect your parenting? Was it to instill independence, or what would you say to someone who does have a much younger child going through the baby stage, toddler stage, young child, middle child, teen.
Yeah.
How would you suggest that sort of overarching, you're this person's going to be an adult one day. How would you
Yeah.
suggest that they use that framework? Because I think that's something that's really beautiful and not often are we thinking of, right? Because we're just worried about bedtime or we're just worried about
Yeah.
the nap or what they're bringing to school. But how did that impact your parenting overall, or how would you suggest parents can take that to their everyday?
That's a great question. I mean, obviously parenting changes as your kids get older, right? So you're just trying, like, as they're little, you're just trying, like, make sure they eat and don't die or something, like as a baby, you're just trying to keep them alive,
Boils
right?
down to it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But, I think for me, I was really cognizant I want, I want to raise a daughter who is going to go into the world with their eyes wide open and going to contribute something positive to society. So, that that's a big ask, right? But as she was younger, like I think she could do her own laundry at a pretty young age. Like, how do I teach you um, to just be able to take care of yourself,
Mhm.
which is, I think, a big thing, right? Like, I don't, I don't want to pass judgment on it, but I'll see some kids who are like, oh my God, like they can't even like prepare a meal for themselves, and they're in high school, or they were expecting their mom to still do, like, stop it, like stop it. Like, first of all,
Yeah.
I think I saw a different role for myself as a mom, right? Like, I was like, listen, I was it's funny because you can talk to my daughter now and she she might have a complete different perception of this, because sometimes she'll give me feedback now of like, that one time you did that thing, it was really rude when I was 12. And I was like, oh,
Oh, whoops.
sorry. Yeah, sorry. Um, but I was very much like, I guess, I was in the house where, if she had friends over, everyone was getting a custom meal. It was like, this is what's for dinner. You take it or leave it. Like, your power is in your choice right now. Do you want to
Mhm.
eat it? Or like, you have a choice. Do you want this? Your answer is yes or no. But the choice doesn't, the offering doesn't change, but you get to make a choice. Isn't So we would talk a lot about choice. And we would talk a lot about um, maybe how her behavior was impacting others, especially as you get older and like the middle school era, the preteen era. Like, wow, that's fun. That was not a fun time, I don't think. But,
Mm.
just being able to manage all those emotions, right? Which meant I had to manage my emotions. And I had to do a lot of work on myself during that time. I wasn't prepared. I was prepared. I could do the little kid stuff, but once you got to the emotional stuff, because I wasn't a really emotional person, I hadn't done a lot of therapy or healing work on myself at that point, that really kicked my ass into gear to take care of me in
Mhm.
order to understand how to raise this person now through the next phase of life. And now she's in her early 20s, and our relationship is completely different. And we can have different conversations. But, you know, I don't know. I don't know what the next thing holds. I just know that parenting made me have to get more real with myself. She taught me a lot about me.
So good. I think it's true. I mean, our kids teach us so much about ourselves, and sometimes they're that mirror into
Mm-hmm.
our ourselves that we're like, oh, this is a little mini version of myself. And that can be good, or sometimes it, is just eye-opening and gives us that extra layer of awareness. And I laugh as you were talking because, I do have friends who didn't know how to do laundry. And we were in university, and we were living out of town. And I was like, what? I'm the oldest. I had three younger brothers. I had to learn
Yeah.
a lot of these skills. And now as a mom, I think maybe we want to be there. We want to give our kids everything, but when you have multiple children, you can't always do that. So
Mm-mm.
I see my 3-year-old doing things that, my 10-year-old only started doing just like a few years ago. And
Oh,
now
wow.
I'm like allowing my 3-year-old to be so much more independent because I don't necessarily have the time or the capacity to
Mm-hmm.
like do absolutely everything for all three of my children. And so I think it's a great just reminder to parents that allowing that sense of freedom and independence can actually support them, especially as they get older. So
Yeah.
it's so great to hear that you were kind of consciously doing that with your daughter at an early age. And Amalia, I know we've spent a lot of time with you today, and we're going to be closing out soon, but I would love to know if you had one piece of advice for other women, moms who are doing the juggle. They've got their careers, maybe they're entrepreneurs, maybe they're working hard, they've got families, they've got big dreams, they want to make an impact. Do you have any advice for the listener?
Mm. It's the advice that I'm giving myself right now, which is you have to prioritize yourself somewhere in here. And it should be probably at the top, if not near the top of the list, which feels counterintuitive to me personally. But I know that it makes everything better. So you gotta, whatever that looks like for you, if it's like designing your schedule the best way that you can and making sure you put 15 minutes into just like take care of yourself. If it's like meditating before you go to bed, or, setting your house rules to benefit you, not benefit anybody else. But, bedtime is 8 o'clock and there is no moving on it because I need an hour before whatever it is before to just get myself together, right? To do a face mask or drink a cup of tea or just like sit and breathe and veg out in front of the sofa. I also think that's okay. I told this to my husband last night when we had a very busy weekend, and usually I do nothing on Sundays where it's just my day.
Yeah.
I try not to get on my pajamas. I try not to leave the house. I try not to do anything, and have no expectations of myself. But that wasn't the case this last weekend. So towards the end of the day, I was like, I am just sitting on the sofa for the next 2 hours and watching whatever I want to. Like, don't talk to me. I think of, 10 years ago, I would have felt guilty about that. I would have felt like I should have been doing something. So this is a very long answer to your very specific question. But the other thing I would say is to eliminate the word should from your vocabulary. It's also something I work with my daughter on a lot. She feels like she should be, did I should, and it's like you are wasting so much mental and emotional time going down this rabbit hole of should. What can you do, not what should you do? Or what are you doing? Which is probably a lot.
Yeah. Managing a lot. That's beautiful. And thanks for teaching your daughter that at a young age. Because yes, the shoulding is something that I had to get over in my late 30s. So
Oh,
still things we butt up against too.
totally.
Amalia, it's been so wonderful chatting with you today. I love the work you're doing. I love the advice that you've provided us. And you mentioned that sometimes vegging out on the sofa is totally okay. And I absolutely agree. What is it that you're doing now for yourself in those small, simple, and, sometimes, maybe, guilty pleasure ways to care for yourself and prioritize yourself?
Oh, I mean, yoga is my go-to. Although it's so funny. I'm talking to you about this now because I am literally up against like the busiest year I've ever had, and it's taking its toll, right? So I have just been burning it at both ends for probably the last 6 months. And just recently had to have a sit down with myself where I was like, this is not, you haven't been to yoga in like 6 weeks, right? Like, this is a tell that something is wrong. So, yoga is usually my go to. I love it. I do hot yoga. I've done it for 10 years or so. Um, and it's about the physical movement and getting things out of your body and sweating and all that stuff. But it's also about just the mental, how you walk into the room is different, how you leave the room. You're in a different place. And usually some of my best ideas or inspirations come on the drive home. So yoga and my Sundays. Do nothing Sundays. The more I can have of those, the better.
I hope that this year brings plenty of hot yoga for you, the slow Sunday, and whatever it is that's helping you put yourself on the list. It's been such a joy chatting with you. Thank you for sharing your time on the Juggle Israel.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, what more can I say except for just bravo, Amalia? It's incredible to see people truly leading with such passion, determination, and alignment with values and with beautiful, beautiful representation. It was an honor to chat with Amalia today, and I've included some links in the notes for this podcast episode, including links to her podcast, The Whole Damn Pie, where I was a guest and so honored to do so. If you enjoyed this conversation, I would so appreciate you rating it, writing me a review in Apple Podcasts to support others in finding it as well. And please share it with a friend, someone who would really enjoy hearing from Amalia and learning about the impact that she's making and what we can all do to support better equity, social justice, and representation in our own communities. Thanks for tuning in, and I can't wait to see you here for another episode of The Juggle is Real. Take good care.